Welcome to Crochet Basics, Part 8, Increases and Decreases, Keeping Your Edges Even. I've covered increases and decreases a little bit in my previous videos, but now I'm going to solely focus on keeping your edges straight. Right now we don't want to increase or decrease. That our focus will be keeping our edges even. So you might be working along and not counting your stitches at the end of every row, like we've talked about doing, not using markers, and that's fine. You can see everything is fine right here. But look what's happening. All of a sudden I realize I've got way more stitches than I started out with. How did that happen? Commonly, it's because of not working in that second stitch over at the beginning of every row, and I will show you. It's working in the first stitch of the row. So, in order for my unintentional increase to continue happening here, I've done my chain turn. I don't skip this stitch. I'm going right on in there just because I'm not really thinking about it and it just seems like it's the right thing to do, and I continue on my way. When you add one stitch per row, just one stitch per row, doesn't take long before you begin to expand out. So when you find out what you've done and you realize you've made that mistake, you can count your stitches going back to where you were down here. Let's count the posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, if that's why I started with even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, okay, so I was good up to here, maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, to here. It looks like it's starting to grow here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I know I need to pull my work back all the way down here. Now, it's not that big of a deal for a piece like this. This is small, but it's kind of a bummer. Whoops, sorry about that. Knocking over my yarn. It's a bummer if you're doing a scarf and you're a lot further along, or a blanket, or a sweater during the straight sections. It's just a bummer when you find out you've got to pull out your work. Ripping it out is not fun, but ripping it out is instructive, so don't get frustrated if you ever have to do that. All right, I'll just pull this out too. Alrighty. So now I'm back to where my edges were straight. And in order to continue on with my straight edges, all I have to remember is, this is for half double, double, treble, on up. This does not count for single crochet. Single crochet, you work in every stitch. But for half double on up, you skip that first stitch, you work into the second stitch. And on down the row, including the top of that turning chain, which if you're kind of new to crochet, you probably ought to be marking. So that would be how we would continue on with our edges straight. Now let me show you what happens. Let me find that one. When you start, I have a little bit of a bigger piece here so I can show you. When you start your piece doing fine, coming along just great, keep crocheting, and then suddenly you realize, oh, I have nearly as many stitches as I'm supposed to have. When did that happen? So you can look down here. How many did you start with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we're counting that turning chain, 16. I started out with 16 stitches. How many did I end up with before I realized I made a mistake? We count the turning chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've been dropping a stitch a row. And that, look at the difference that makes. All right, so I would want to go back to where I last had, was it 16 stitches? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. What about this row? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. So I know that's the row I made my mistake on. So again, I'm going to rip it. We'll just keep on pulling it out. I may not have to pull out very far here. Nope, I don't. All right. So I put the hook back in the loop. And in order to fix my mistake, all right, my mistake has been on decreasing, that I've been ignoring working into that top of the chain 3 turn, or the top of whatever chain turn, depending on which stitch you're using. But this is where that mistake happens. Now you see I brought myself back up to being even. And to continue even, flip my work over, skip, work in the second one, and on we go. My last stitch will not be in what looks like my last stitch. It'll be in the +1, is what I like to call that, +1. Continue on working like normal in these stitches. When you think you're at your end, because you've done your last normal stitch, add one more, +1. What happens if you don't like working in the top of your turning chain, and so you decide, I will work in the first stitch of each row, but I'll ignore that turning chain? You'll have the same number of stitches. Very true. Here's a piece where I've done that. And it's fine. You can do that. When you put a border on the piece, that will pretty much disappear. But this is what you're going to get. More of a zigzaggy kind of a look. But you can keep your edges straight, or fairly so, by doing that. I'm going to set this piece down and pull out this piece. This is a piece where I followed the rules, the traditional rules of skipping that first stitch, working in the second one, and then working in the chain, the top of the turning chain at the end of the row. You can see there is still a little bit of that kind of a scallopy effect. It's just not as noticeable as it is in this piece. So that might end up coming to be a point of preference for you. If it drives you nuts to work into the top of that turning chain, perhaps you'll want to do something more like this. I do have students who really can't stand working in that turning chain. We just focus on, you know what, just get it done. If you need to do a little bit looser chain when you do those turning chains to make it possible to get your hook in there, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. People dislike it for various reasons. So this is another way to keep your edges straight. This is following all the traditional rules. This is breaking them just a little bit, but you can see the amount of stitches remains the same per row. I'm not increasing and I'm not decreasing. All right, I hope you'll continue to join me. Our next video will be working in the round. And that's something that's great for hats, doilies, anything you're working round and round with. I'll see you then.